Hello and welcome back for another optional art project. So during COVID, we have been 100% online and not able to get to all of the regular projects we would do in school. So a lot of these optional projects are not necessarily projects we would do at school, but I'm trying to include some of the skills that I would teach at school, as well as keep these projects based off of materials that most people probably have at home. All right, so thank you for joining me and let's get started. All right, so we are going to take a look at rainbows, zones, and mobiles. All right, so we're going to look at what mobiles are. We're going to just quickly touch on zones because it's new to our school. And we're going to look at some meanings of rainbows, and then we will create. And I will have some variations of this project for some variety of materials, but also skill levels. All right, so mobiles. Mobiles are things that are put together, sculptures that usually hang freely from a ceiling or for some kind of structure that was perhaps created for that mobile. And there is both a creative design and an engineering process to this. All right, you have to think about how things are connected, the weight of the materials. So you're thinking of balance. You're also thinking about, is it inside, is it outside? So you have to think about the weather. It's an awful lot going on in there. And here are two examples, two artists that create different mobiles. Some of you may have heard of Alexander Calder. I've had the opportunity to see some of his stuff in museums. And then on the left, you also have Marvin Shafer. And both of these just enormous mobiles. Just imagine some of the skill and the engineering that went into creating these pieces. All right, so how does that come into art class? Well, we are talking about movement and balance while we're creating these. All right, so even here at the elementary level, even though we're creating much smaller mobiles than the ones I just showed you, we're still having to consider how are things going to move, how are things going to balance, what's that color going to look like as it's hanging there and moving about. All right, so we're still considering some of those and we're still learning some engineering skills. All right, zones of regulation. Now I'm going to start off by saying I am not a certified zones person necessarily. I don't know if there's such thing, but I just want to kind of put that out for the purpose of copyright. We are learning this at our school, so I just want to quickly touch on this. The reason why I'm bringing this in is because we want our students to become more familiar with identifying where they are in zones, but then I'm connecting it to art through color. All right, so these colors that are associated with the zones are also very common colors that we associate with the emotions that are included in these different zones. All right, so blue and just for those who are listening, all zones, all colors are okay. All right, that's the thing. All our emotions are okay. You should never feel bad for feeling a certain way. It just may not always be the best emotion to be in for the circumstances you're in. So this just helps children identify it with themselves, but also with others. So there are times when I may be like, Miss Dow is getting into the yellow zone because I'm getting frustrated because kids aren't answering or they're shutting off their videos or whatever. Okay, so it really does help. And so they're becoming familiar with some of these. We do talk about color a lot in art and how it's associated with emotions, and which made me think of rainbows, right? We want to include every emotion. We want to include every person in this. We want to respect other people's emotions. And that just naturally brought me to rainbows. And then we're also going into March, which might include some stories and culture, such as the Irish culture with the leprechauns and the pot of gold. All right, for me, I also think about it as God's promise that is in the Bible. All right, so right now we want to really focus though on togetherness, but also folks, think about how it relates to you and what it means to you. Okay. All right, so we are going to create mobiles. And so these are the two different examples that I've already pre-created. And I'm going to kind of go through and show you how to create the different pieces and then give you some tidbits on how to assemble it. Now, I'm not going to give you all the answers because part of art is problem solving, okay? But I will give you quite a bit of information. All right, so let's get started. I'll move this because I'm not sure if that's part of this or not. Okay, so you have some choices to get started. You want to decide, are you going to use the paper plate in your sculpture, or are you going to use the paper chain? Now, there's different skill levels here. I will tell you, you have a younger artist or an artist that is maybe just not quite higher level skills with their hands, good dexterity, then you might want to stick with the paper chain. But I do believe most kids at our school can do the paper plate project. You might need a little help when it comes to the assembly, okay? With the paper plate, you can use paint, or you could have them color with crayons or markers, but also remember to do both sides of the plate. You will see both sides of that. If you're doing the paper chain, you can see it's pretty simple. You're going to cut strips of paper, approximately 1 inch by 8 or 9 inches long. And then you just glue them, looping one through the other before you glue it, of course. All right. All right, so the next big decision is your base or a topper, okay? So you can have, like if you saw in the previous example, like this one right here, I have it hanging here. I created this one with a base, okay? And then had the rainbow, the plate coming up out of it. I'm kind of using this base as like a book, a rainbow book, okay? There's different ways of doing this. I'm going to show you when I'm assembling this next piece how to use it as a topper and have the rainbow coming down. The assembly will need to be a little bit different because of the weight. Because this base is heavy, I had to assemble it a little differently to support the weight of that base. The paper plate was not going to support it because it's a lot heavier, even though they're both made from paper. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is decide on your shape. Okay, there are different shapes that you can do. Here you can see I traced a heart. I folded the paper in half first and just drew half of the heart. It makes things a little bit easier. And then I traced it on the other colors and cut them out. You can also do the pot of gold. All right, you can see the example here. Again, just fold it in half and only draw half of it. And then cut it out on multiple pieces. And I'll show you why. Because we're going to glue them together and it kind of becomes like an accordion as it opens up. Okay, so I would recommend if you're going to do the accordion, do at least 3. And I wouldn't get any more than like 10. I think I had 10 papers in the rainbow there. And that's just because it's going to get really heavy. Okay. All right. So that is the part I'm going to switch now to demonstrate this part. But if you look at this picture, you can see what I did to make the book, or yeah, the rainbow book. I had folded my paper in half. I cut it to the size I wanted, folded each sheet in half, and I started stacking them and gluing them. And I am going to demonstrate this because I know sometimes just the view can be a little bit confusing. So I've got another one that's almost completely done. All right, I've already folded the pages. Okay, so you can see this is the size I cut my paper. I can't remember the measurements now. And then folded them all in half. Okay, and then the side that has the fold. All right, the fold. All right, so this is the open side. This is the fold. You want to glue your papers together so that the folds are all together on one side. And you want to be careful. I don't think that's focusing. All right, you want to be careful that this is even. All right, so all I did was use my glue stick and I put glue all around the edges, a little bit in the middle. you're using thin paper, be careful not to crinkle it. All right, so this is my edges here with a fold. Here's my fold. I am going to lay it down right here. Okay, now the temptation is going to be to want to finish it and glue. What we'll do eventually is glue those two sides together. But don't do that yet, okay? We're going to have to do some additional things with this before we glue it together. Now, just a thought right now, if you want to make yourself a cute little book, you could use different color papers and glue them together and then give it a cover and a back, and you just have a nice, cute little journal that you can use as a book. Just a little side note. Okay. Also, I did it with the black pot of gold, right? Again, I folded it in half and I stacked it. I think I did 10 of them. All right, and I'm going to show you in a moment what to do next. Oh, that is next. Okay, I didn't have to switch yet. So this is something that's optional. Obviously, this is Irish pot of gold is not part of zones, but I just thought it was an extra thing if you wanted to. You can make some gold circles and you can glue them together the same way, fold them half and stack them. I did have a couple here that I'll show you I'm going to do with later. And then you could also make pom-poms if you have some yarn. I'm not going to go through or demonstrate how to do that. There's lots of videos already on YouTube on how to do that, but I do have some step-by-step directions here if you are interested. They're pretty easy to make, okay? You just make a little template, you wrap the yarn around, make it nice and thick, and then you come along here, be very careful. You need some good scissors to cut along here. And then before you take off that frame that you made, you tie a long string around the middle here, and that holds, you got to do it really tight, and that holds it all together. And then at the end, you'll probably have some pieces that are not, they're like sticking out, so you just trim them a little bit, and then when you're done, you have some cute little pom-poms. Do not cut the long string when you tied it, all right? If you are going to do if you're going to use these, especially if you're going to use these the way I did in the picture one, you need a really long string. So when you tie it, have a long one. All right, I'll show you why when we start putting it together. All right, so let's start putting some things together. If you are doing the paper chain, all you're going to do is make another loop. And instead of making it round in a circle, you're going to glue them the opposite. So it creates this I don't know what you would call that, this downward loop there. All right. And then you would take the shape that you created for the base. I did the hearts here, if you remember. You will just put some glue on there and then glue the two ends together with that loop in between. All right. And press it there. Boys and girls, you know, hold it for about 10 seconds between your hands, and that helps the glue set quicker. Okay. All right. So now we're going to assemble the paper plate, and I'm going to demonstrate some techniques on how to do this because this is a little bit more complicated. So the first thing you're going to do is go ahead and cut your spiral. Just simply go cut round and round and round and round until you get to the middle. All right, so let me switch back to my document camera. And we are almost done. All right, so here is my paper plate. I have cut it into a spiral, and you can see I glued it, or I painted this one a little bit differently. You can certainly do the stripes like I did on the first one. All right, it's all different. Now, I'm going to put this aside for a second because on this one, I'm going to assemble it with the pot of gold. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I made 3 pom-poms And again, you can do the little gold paper. You could just leave them flat, or you can glue them together like I did. You can put them around so they look round, and then you could just glue them onto the pot of gold anywhere you want, or you could leave them partially round like this. All right. I'm going to use my, oh, I forgot black on black. Here. There we go. All right. So I have them all together. They're glued, right? These are where the folds are. So I am going to put some glue. Now, you can't use a glue stick for the yarn. If you're using yarn, glue stick will not work on that. You're going to need a lot of glue because the yarn soaks up the glue. So I'm going to put a lot of yarn in here. I mean, the glue. It's at the end of the day, y'all. It's Thursday. It's Friday Eve for me right now at the time of this recording. My brain is fried. All right. So now I'm going to take my gold pom-poms. I'm going to take this extra string and I'm going to stick it in the glue. All right, now unfortunately this is going to take a while to dry. I'm going to put a little extra glue on top. Get it good and soaked. And then I'm going to put some glue here. Okay. You see how I'm doing that in the center? And then I'm going to close the ends so that the two ends are glued together. So I'm going to pull this one and this one together like this. So I'm going to pull those tight. When they flap over like that, you can just, before it dries, you can pull on the little strings that you have down here so that they're sitting on top. And as you open up, your pot of gold, they'll sit on top like that. And from a different angle, you can see me right there. Okay, you got your gold coming up out of your pot, and then you attach your rainbow. Now there's all different kinds of ways you can attach it. Okay, you can glue it. All right, while it's still a little bit wet, I could stick it down inside the piece where I glued it here because it's not going to stay. I could stick it right down there and glue it. I could staple it. Okay, all different kinds of ways. I'm going to use a clamps right now for this to dry, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment because I think you're going to be able to see this part better. So then, whoops. All right, there we go. So then, no, I'm sorry. I'm going the wrong way. Yeah, this is going to come down. It was too heavy. See, I'm trying to do what I did earlier. So this would be the opposite. Once you get those in there, you're going to have to play with those strings. I can't do that right now and still do what I need to do. So I'll play with this in a minute and fix that. But you're going to have that, like I could have this sticking in the top of this, but then have it come down and hang. Back up a little bit and have it hang from this. You see how it's hanging? Okay, so that's one way of setting it up. You see I have my topper, so this would be a topper. Okay, and then you could just put a string on top to hang it. All right, so you can just glue it all in before you close the ends, and then you will have that. Or you could finish it off the way that I did here. Now, if you put it at the bottom, this is, like I was saying earlier, this is too heavy for this to hold, all right? It didn't matter with the pot of gold because it was hanging below it, but this is a little different. So what I did is when I made my pom-pom, and if you're not doing pom-poms, you're just doing something else, you just need a long string, okay? So you could just get a long string, and what I did was I put a hole in the top and I put the hole, the yarn through there, and I tied a knot. Get a little closer. I tied a knot underneath so that the string, so that this wouldn't slide down. So there's a little knot under there so that it wouldn't slide, okay? And then I put the string down and I brought the string through the end of the paper plate. And then the string is glued inside here the same way I glued the string in here, all right? So before you close it, hang this back up. So if you have that one string, okay, you have this string, you are going to, it's hanging, you're gonna put it inside the, whatever you're using and glue it like this. And then that paper plate will go on top, all right? So it doesn't matter which way you do it first. You can glue it in here first and then put the paper plate on, or you can put the paper plate on and do it that way. It doesn't matter, okay? And then these little things, you could add them in here, like right here, this little space right here on the string. I could glue it like this on the string, right? I could decorate that string if I wanted to, okay? So there's all different kinds of things you can do with this. So there's pot of gold. I got my rainbow book. I've got little spheres, all right? One of the things I do at school with these is sometimes is we do the planets. We make planet mobiles. That's kind of fun too. But that's all for now. Yep. So you have your paper plate. You have your paper accordion. They're like accordions, okay? Whichever you choose. You could do the hearts, right? You could just do a couple that just has 4. You can do the paper chains, or you can do the paper plates. All right, so those are the different pieces. You be creative, you be a problem solver, creative problem solver, an engineer, and see what you can come up with for your rainbow zone mobile. All right, have fun.